The research vessel Concordia floated dead in space like a broken toy. Its engines were silent, and holes in the metal hull let the cold darkness creep inside. What started as a normal trip to explore new worlds had become a nightmare when the ship's main power system exploded. Commander Vextel stood tall on his 6 legs, his bug-like eyes looking at the wounded crew members with disgust. His people, the Zelthani, looked like giant insects with hard shells and sharp claws. "The escape pods are only for the strong," he said with clicking sounds. "We cannot waste space on broken ones." Kes was a young Zelthani who worked on the ship's communication systems. She tried to stand up, but her left wing was badly broken from the explosion. Sharp pain shot through her body as she watched her commander look right through her like she was already dead. Her wing would never work properly again, and that made her useless to her people near the water tanks. The fish-like Corvani were sealing themselves inside their special survival chambers. Captain Mordeep Eskils moved with anger as he saw Mira, the ship's scientist who studied alien life forms. Mira had trouble breathing because of a sickness she was born with. Her people thought she was defective. "The ship has too many broken specimens," Mordeep said through his translator. His voice sounded like bubbles popping. "We cannot risk bringing disease to healthy Corvani." Mira held her chest as she struggled to breathe. She had spent her whole life being told she was not good enough because of her weak lungs. Now, when death was close, her own people still rejected her. The last group to leave were the warrior-like Vorthok. They were big and strong, with thick skin covered in battle scars. Warchief Grunder put on his fighting armor and looked down at Thyron, an old engineer who had worked for the Vorthok army for 60 years. Thyron's hands shook because of his age, and his old body was weak. "Your time of honor is finished, old one," Grundar said in a deep voice. "You cannot move fast enough to keep up with real warriors." Thyron had helped build many of their greatest ships. He had taught young engineers and saved countless lives with his knowledge. But now that his body was old, none of that mattered to his people. One by one, the escape ships left the Concordia. The healthy, the young, and the perfect were saved. The broken, the old, and the sick were left behind to die alone in the cold space. 17 beings stayed on the dying ship. They came from different worlds and looked nothing alike, but they all shared the same fate. Their own people had decided they were not worth saving. Cass dragged herself to the main room, using her good wing. Her broken wing left a trail of blue blood on the metal floor. Around her, the other abandoned crew members sat in small groups, waiting for death to come. Thyron leaned against a wall, his breathing slow and painful. "At least we will die with some dignity," he said quietly. "That is more than our people gave us." A young Vorthok with a twisted arm sat nearby. His name was Korth, and he had been thrown away because his birth defect made him a poor fighter. "I always wondered what it felt like to be nothing," he said. "Now I know." Mira sat on the floor, holding a small device that helped her breathe. "My research could have helped millions of people learn about new life forms," she whispered. "But, because my lungs are weak, none of it matters." The ship's lights flickered as the power systems slowly died. Emergency red lights cast scary shadows on the walls. Through the broken windows, they could see the last rescue ship becoming smaller and smaller until it looked like just another star, then disappeared completely. An old Corvani named Reef floated in a small water tank. His fins were damaged, making him swim in crooked circles. "In all my years studying the galaxy," he said sadly, "I never thought my own children would leave me to die." The air was getting thinner. The heating system had failed hours ago, and frost was starting to form on the walls. They could feel the cold creeping into their bones. Cass looked around at the others. They were all different species, who normally would never talk to each other. But now, in their final hours, they were the same. They were the unwanted ones, the mistakes, the burdens that their perfect societies could not accept. Is this how all civilizations work? She asked, nobody in particular. Do all advanced species throw away their broken people? Nobody answered because they all knew the truth. This was normal. This was how things had always been. The strong survived, and the weak were left behind. It was the natural order of the universe. As the life support systems gave their final warnings, the 17 abandoned souls prepared for death. They had been judged unworthy by their own kind and left to die in the endless dark of space. Soon, the cold and lack of air would take them, and the galaxy would forget they had ever existed. The Concordia drifted silently through the void, carrying its cargo of the forgotten and unwanted toward their final rest. 2 days passed on the dying ship. The air was getting harder to breathe, and the cold made everyone shiver. Ice crystals formed on the walls, and their breath came out in white clouds. The 17 abandoned beings huddled together for warmth, knowing death would come soon. Kes lay on the cold floor, too weak to move much. Her broken wing hurt terribly, but the pain reminded her she was still alive. Around her, the others were getting weaker too. Some had closed their eyes and stopped talking. The ship's emergency power was almost gone. Soon, even the red warning lights would go dark, and they would die in complete blackness. Thyron tried to fix some systems with his shaking hands, but there was nothing left to repair. Suddenly, a crackling sound came from the communication system. Static filled the air, and then a voice broke through the noise. Unknown vessel, this is Captain Lee Jinho of the human freighter Defiant Dawn. We picked up your distress signal. Please respond if anyone is alive. Kes could not believe what she heard. Humans, the young species that had only learned to travel between stars 30 years ago. Most alien races barely noticed humans because they seemed so primitive and weak. With great effort, Kes crawled to the communication panel. Her good wing dragged her broken body across the floor. Blood from her wounds left a blue trail behind her. The others stared in shock. This is the research vessel Concordia, Kes said in a weak voice. We have 17 survivors, but you should know something important. We are the unwanted ones. Our own people already saved everyone worth saving and left us here to die. There was a long silence. Maybe the humans would understand and fly away. After all, why would anyone risk their lives for genetic defects and useless old beings? Then a different voice came through the speaker. It was a woman who sounded kind and warm. This is Commander Park Sojin, medical officer of the Defiant Dawn. Did you just say your own people abandoned you? Mira struggled to speak, her weak lungs making each word difficult. Our injuries and birth defects make us unsuitable for rescue. We understand if you cannot help us. We are not worth the risk. The response shocked everyone on the ship. Like hell you're not worth it. Captain Jinho's voice came back strong and angry. Sojin, get the medical bay ready now. Kim Minsu, plot a course to reach them fast. We're not leaving anyone to die out here. The abandoned crew looked at each other with confusion. This made no sense at all. In every civilization they knew, resources were precious and risks had to be calculated carefully. Why would humans put themselves in danger for broken and useless beings? Theron spoke up with his old, tired voice. Captain, you need to understand what you're dealing with. I am far past my useful years. The Corvani female has serious breathing problems. The Zelthani's wing will never heal properly. We offer no value to anyone. Another pause. When the human captain spoke again, his voice carried something the survivors had never heard directed at them before. It was respect. Sir, I don't know what kind of societies you all come from, but humans believe every life has value. Every single life. We're coming to get all of you, and that's a promise. Reef, the old Corvani, floated in his small tank with tears in his eyes. But we will slow you down. We will use your resources. We will be a burden. Then we'll carry that burden. Came a new voice. It was Han Junesio, the ship's engineer. That's what decent people do. Through the broken windows, they could see a small ship getting bigger as it approached. The Defiant Dawn was not a large vessel. It was just a simple cargo ship, much smaller than the Concordia, but it was coming for them. "How many crew do you have?" Kes asked. 12, Captain Jinho replied. "But we'll make room. We always make room." 12 humans were risking their lives to save 17 aliens who had been thrown away like garbage. It was impossible to understand. In Zelthani society, the strong dominated the weak. In Corvani culture, genetic purity was everything. In Vorthok tradition, the old were expected to die so the young could thrive. But these humans seemed to follow different rules. "Prepare for docking," came the captain's voice. "We're going to get you out of there." As the human ship moved closer, Kes felt something she had never experienced in her life. For the first time since the accident, she believed she might actually survive. More than that, she believed someone cared whether she lived or died. The other survivors watched through the windows as the small, human ship maneuvered alongside their dying vessel. They could see lights in the windows and movement inside. Real people were coming to save them, even though they had nothing to offer in return. "Why?" whispered Mira. "Why would they do this for strangers?" Nobody had an answer, but they all felt hope growing in their hearts. Maybe, just maybe, not all civilizations abandoned their weak. Maybe somewhere in the galaxy, there were people who believed that every life mattered. The Defiant Dawn was almost close enough to dock. Soon, they would learn what kind of beings these humans really were. The human ship Defiant Dawn was not built for rescue missions. It was just a simple cargo carrier with a crew of 12 people. But they worked like heroes to save the abandoned aliens. Captain Lee Jinho moved quickly through his ship, giving orders to his crew. His chief engineer, Han Junesio, was already working on connecting the two ships together. The Concordia was badly damaged, with huge holes in its sides and broken systems everywhere. "The damage is worse than we thought," Junesio told his captain through the radio. "There are big holes on the 4th and 7th levels. The ship could break apart at any moment." "Can we keep their life support working long enough to get everyone out?" asked Commander Park Sojin. She was already putting on her medical suit, ready to help the wounded. "I'm trying my best," said Choi Yoon-ji, the woman who fixed the ship's computers and systems. "But we need to work very fast, or people will die." What happened next amazed the dying aliens. The humans did not ask which survivors were the most valuable. They did not check who had good genes, or who was young and strong. They simply started, saving every single life they could find. Sojin rushed to help Mira, the Corvani scientist who could barely breathe. "We're going to help you breathe better," she told Mira gently. "My friend Dr. Yoon Hae-jin is getting our medical room ready for you." Sojin shared her precious medical supplies without thinking twice. In most alien societies, medicine was saved for the healthy and strong. But this human woman gave her best equipment to someone other people called defective. Engineer Junesio worked next to Thune, the elderly voice. Instead of treating the old alien like he was useless, Junesio spoke to him with respect. "Your knowledge about engine systems could help us fix the Concordia's power core," he said politely. "If you feel strong enough to help, sir." Their old eyes grew wide with surprise. Nobody had called him sir for many years. His own people treated him like garbage, but this young human valued his experience. Yes, I can help," Thyron said, his voice shaking with emotion. Captain Jinho personally helped Kes move to the medical area. He was very careful not to hurt her broken wing even more. "My daughter broke her arm last year," he said in a friendly way. "It scared me more than any battle I've ever been in. But children are stronger than we think." Kes could not understand this. The human captain was talking about her like she was his own child. He was treating her with the same love and care he would show his family. As the rescue continued, the aliens saw something they had never witnessed before. The humans gave away their own food so the rescued aliens could eat. They shared their own medicine and even gave up their sleeping rooms to make the aliens comfortable. Petty Officer Nam Tae-hyun learned that 3 old Vorthok needed special air to breathe properly. Without being asked, he immediately moved out of his own room so they could use it. "It's no problem at all," he said when Thyron tried to protest. "We take care of each other out here. That's what good people do." The word good hit the survivors like a physical punch. Their own advanced civilizations had thrown them away like trash. But these supposedly primitive humans were risking everything to save strangers they had never met before. Dr. Yoon Hae-jin worked without stopping to help all the wounded aliens. She treated Kessa's broken wing, helped Mira breathe easier, and gave medicine to everyone who needed it. She never asked if they deserved help or if they could pay her back. "In human medicine, we help everyone equally," she explained to Mira. "It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, young or old, healthy or sick, every person deserves to live." The humans worked for hours without rest. They crawled through dangerous broken areas of the Concordia to reach survivors who were trapped. Lieutenant Seo Junwoo risked his life to save an old Corvani who was stuck under fallen metal beams. "Why are you doing this?" the old Corvani asked, as Junwoo carefully lifted the heavy metal off him. "I am old and useless. Let me die so you can save someone younger." "Nobody is useless," Junwoo said firmly as he helped the alien to safety. "You have lived a long life and learned many things. That makes you valuable, not worthless." As more survivors were brought to safety, they watched the humans share everything they had: food, water, medicine, warm clothes, comfortable places to sleep. The humans gave it all away without asking for anything in return. Sergeant Oh Dae-yoon gave her own winter jacket to a young Vorthok who was shivering from the cold. "You need this." "More than I do," she said with a smile. The rescued aliens began to realize something incredible. These humans did not see them as burdens or mistakes. They saw them as people who deserved to live and be happy. For the first time in their lives, the abandoned survivors felt what it was like to be truly valued by someone. The humans had risked their own lives and given up their comfort to save aliens they did not even know. It was unlike anything they had ever experienced before. The journey to the nearest space station took 3 days. During this time, the rescued aliens learned more about humans than they had ever imagined possible. Kes spent most of her time in the ship's small recreation room, watching the humans when they were not working. She saw Sergeant Oh Do-yoon sitting patiently with an elderly Corvani, teaching him simple Korean words. The old alien's fins moved slowly as he tried to copy the sounds. "Hello," the Corvani said in broken Korean, and Dae-yoon clapped her hands with joy. "Very good. You're learning fast," she encouraged him. At the same table, Lieutenant Seo Junwoo was showing family photos to a young Vorthok who had been abandoned because of a small birth defect on his arm. The human pointed to pictures of his children and wife, explaining each one with love in his voice. "This is my son. He's 7 years old and loves to build things with blocks," Junwoo said. "And this is my daughter. She has trouble with her eyes, so she wears special glasses to help her see." The young Vorthok looked surprised. "Your daughter has a defect, but you still love her." "Of course I love her," Junwoo said, confused by the question. "She's my daughter. Her glasses don't change who she is inside." Kes could not understand this. In Zelthani society, children with problems were sent away or killed. But this human father spoke about his daughter's weakness with pride, not shame. Captain Jin-ho noticed Kes watching and sat down next to her. "You look confused," he said kindly. "I don't understand your people," Kes admitted. "In our world, genetic purity is the most important thing. The weak are removed so the species can grow stronger. How does humanity survive while protecting the unfit?" Jin-ho thought for a moment before answering. "We learned something important in our history. Being different makes us stronger, not weaker. Some of our greatest achievements came from people others thought were broken or useless. He pointed around the ship. This vessel was designed by a woman who had trouble learning in school. Our best computer programs were written by a man who could not talk to people easily. We discovered that what makes someone different often makes them special. In the medical room, Dr. Yoon Hae-jin was explaining human medical care to Myra. The Corvani scientist was breathing much better now with the human medicine. Every patient gets the same level of care, Hae-jin said, while checking Myra's breathing device. It doesn't matter if they're the most important leader or a homeless person on the street. All life has the same value. But surely resources must be used wisely, Myra said weakly. The needs of many people should come before the needs of few. The needs of many people include protecting the few who are vulnerable, Hae-jin said gently. A society that abandons its weak people has already failed. Besides, you never know who might discover the next great cure or invention. Different minds solve different problems. In the engineering section, Thyron was working alongside Han Junesio. The old Vorthok's hands still shook, but his knowledge was helping them repair the ship's systems. The young human treated him with respect that Thyron had not felt in years. In Vorthok culture, Thyron said during a break from work, warriors who get old are supposed to die fighting. Those who live too long are seen as cowards who fear death. Junesio looked shocked and sad. That's such a waste of knowledge. You'd have 60 years of experience. That would take me many decades to learn. Why would anyone throw that wisdom away? Because old warriors make young ones move slower, Thyron answered, repeating what he had always been taught. Or they keep young ones from making deadly mistakes, Junesio said back. My grandfather taught me half of everything I know about fixing machines. His wisdom saved my life many times. For the first time in many years, Thyron felt valuable. Not despite his old age, but because of all he had learned in his long life. The humans did more than just save the aliens' lives. They treated them like family. When Mira felt sad about her breathing problems, Dr. Hae-jin sat with her and shared stories about her own struggles. When Kes worried about her broken wing, Captain Jinho told her about famous humans who had achieved great things despite physical problems. One of our most famous scientists could not walk, Jinho explained. He used a special chair with wheels, but his mind changed how we understand the universe. Another great leader was blind, but she helped create laws that protected millions of people. The aliens began to see that humans did not view differences as weaknesses to hide. They celebrated them as strengths that made their society better. Each day, the rescued beings watched the humans work together. Nobody was left out because they were different. Nobody was treated badly because they needed help. The humans shared their food, their knowledge, their time, and their friendship equally with everyone. Is this normal for humans? Reef, the old Corvani asked Sojin one day. Taking care of each other. Sojin smiled. Yes, it's what we try to do. We believe that everyone deserves a chance to live a good life, no matter what makes them different. The aliens realized they were learning about more than just human kindness. They were discovering a completely different way to think about life, value, and what it meant to be part of a society. The space station Haven's Rest was busy with many ships and people when the defiant dawn arrived. News about the human rescue had spread quickly, and representatives from different alien races were waiting to take back their abandoned crew members. Commander Vextal of the Zelthani stood impatiently as Kes walked out of the human ship. Her wing was still healing, but she walked with confidence now. The commander's bug-like eyes looked at her damaged wing with disgust. The broken one survived, he said with clicking sounds. Come back to the breeding stations. Maybe you can still be useful for making babies. But Kes did not move toward her old commander. Instead, she stood up straight and spoke with a strong voice. No, Commander. I will not be coming back. Vextal as sharp mouth parts clicked in surprise. You refuse to return home. You choose to live in exile. I choose to live with dignity, Cass said firmly. Captain Jinho has offered me a job on human research ships. They value my communication skills, not just my genetics. The same thing happened all around the docking area. Thyron refused War Chief Grundar's offer to return to easy maintenance work. Instead, he accepted a job as a consultant with human engineers. Mira turned down the Corvani Medical Center that wanted to study her like a sick animal. She chose to work with Dr. Yoon Haijin on research that helped sick people live better lives. The alien commanders were confused and angry. How could their own people choose to stay with these primitive humans? But the real change started months later. Cass now worked on the human research ship New Horizon. She began sending secret messages to other Zelthani who faced abandonment because of injuries or birth defects. Her rescue network grew slowly and quietly, spreading the human idea that all lives have value. She saved a young Zelthani male who had lost 2 legs in an accident. She rescued an elderly female who was going to be killed because she was too old to work. Each person she saved learned about human kindness and began helping others. Thyron started an engineering school that welcomed students no matter how old they were or what physical problems they had. His first graduate was a young Vorthok with a twisted arm who had been sent to work in terrible mining camps. Now, that young Vorthok designed ships that were safer and better than anything the perfect warriors had built. Mira's research about genetic diversity published papers that challenged what alien races believed about species purity. Her work showed that different types of people made societies stronger, not weaker. Her ideas began changing medical policies across 3 different star systems. The transformation was slow but powerful. Species that had practiced genetic discrimination for thousands of years began questioning their most basic beliefs. Support groups formed for people who were called genetically impure. Elder care centers appeared on worlds that had previously killed their old people. Some aliens resisted the changes. They said humans were weak and foolish for protecting the unfit. But more and more people began to see the truth. Societies that cared for all their members were happier, more creative, and more successful. 1 year after the rescue, Captain Jin was checking distress calls when a familiar voice came through the communication system. Human ship Defiant Dawn. This is Captain Kess of the Zelthani rescue vessel, Second Chance. We are responding to a distress call from an abandoned civilian transport. 17 survivors on board, all written off by their species as worthless. Jinho smiled as he watched Kess's ship change course toward the stranded vessel. Around the galaxy, former outcasts were now rescuing others, spreading the simple human truth that every life had value. Do you need any help, Captain Kess? Jin asked. No thank you, Captain. We can handle this. After all, no one gets left behind. Isn't that what you taught us? Other rescue ships appeared on Jinho's scanner. Thyron commanded a vessel full of elderly engineers who saved old people from death camps. Myra led a medical ship that helped aliens with genetic conditions. Former outcasts from dozens of species now worked together, united by the human principle that everyone deserved a chance to live. The changes spread like ripples in water. Children who would have been killed for being different were now protected and loved. Old people who would have been abandoned were now valued for their wisdom. Sick people who would have been left to die were now given medicine and care. Not every world changed immediately. Some alien races still clung to their old ways, but the seeds of change had been planted, and they continued to grow. Jinho received reports from across the galaxy. Former slaves were being freed. Genetic testing for purity was being banned on some worlds. Laws were being changed to protect the vulnerable instead of destroying them. As Jinho watched the Second Chance disappear toward its rescue mission, he thought about humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. It was not technology or weapons, but compassion. Sometimes the most powerful way to fight cruelty was simply to refuse to accept it as normal. The galaxy was learning that true strength came not from abandoning the weak, but from protecting them. And it had all started with a simple human belief that everyone deserves a chance to live. The universe was becoming a kinder place, one rescued life at a time.